So I wanted to say hello to everyone who's joining. Hi, I'm Wyatt Tinder. I'm Director of Communications at NEWaukee. Thank you for joining us for our first cafe conversation as part of Cloud Cafe, which is NEWaukee's online platform to connect Milwaukeeans during this time of unprecedented isolation. We appreciate your support and your patience as we go through this. We are learning Zoom and all of these other platforms just along with everyone else as we transition to this new normal. Today, we are so excited to be joined by Dr. Elizabeth Polzin. Dr. Elizabeth Polzin currently serves as the Assistant Vice President of Academics and Assistant Professor at Concordia University, where she oversees academic support. Dr. Polzin holds a master's degree in counseling and a doctorate in instructional leadership. Her work in revamping the Concordia University advising model has won recognition from Blackboard and has helped boost retention at the university. She joins us today to share more about how to maintain professional well-being while managing work from home. This is obviously affecting all of us. I guess just to start, how has this changed, work for you?
Sure. Yeah. It's changed work in a lot of ways. Maybe like some of our participants today, work for me has been completely turned upside down. So I typically teach face-to-face classes, and now everything's been moved to a virtual format. So trying to get familiar with some of our learning management tools and how to best utilize those to best serve our students and make sure that process is really seamless for them. That's turned my world upside down, trying to look at that with the silver lining of learning some new skills. On a personal level, I have two small kiddos at home, and both me and my husband work full time. So we're really fortunate today that we don't have two cute faces staring over my shoulder, because they would love to be joining us. But I'm sure that's a reality for a lot of folks too, who now have family obligations, work obligations, and then we've just got this huge stress of what's going on in our world too. So I think suffice to say, it's really just turned everything upside down for me personally and professionally too.
Yeah, awesome. So, I think you have some great advice that you could hopefully share to a lot of our attendees, and anyone who's attending right now, feel free to ask some questions for Dr. Polzin. If you have some questions, we're open for Q&A, so feel free to send us your questions. But I think you had just a few things that you wanted to share.
Yes, and can you see my screen?
Yes, I believe we can see your screen.
Awesome, and hopefully someone will comment if they can't. Again, thanks Wyatt just for having me today and the opportunity to share a little bit more about how we can care for ourselves, not only personally, but professionally. As you mentioned, this is just such a unique time in the history of our world to be faced with a lot of changes for us. Some of you may be working remotely on a regular basis, and some of you may be switching to remote work for the first time. So I think what I can share today would be good reminders for those of you that are really familiar with remote work or have gotten accustomed to that, and those who might be transitioning as well. And Wyatt, I just want to make sure, are you getting any comments that my slides aren't visible or anything?
Nope, I haven't seen. If anyone in the chat is having any difficulty, feel free to jump in the chat, but I think we're fine.
Great, excellent. So the things I'm going to cover today, I think really are common sense, but it's a good time to remind ourselves of what's really critical during this time. So one thing, as you start working remotely, you're working at home, you have an office at home, or perhaps you don't have an office at home at all, and you're sitting at the kitchen table trying to do all your Zoom meetings and work. One thing I would encourage all of us to do is try and keep a normal routine. I think that we will be tempted to sleep in a little bit longer because now we don't have the morning commute, and then the kind of ebb and flow of our entire day starts to shift. So things like waking up at the same time, that's going to be good for your natural rhythm, kind of getting into the groove of the day. Maybe you take up something new to fill that commuting time in the morning rather than sleep. But in terms of sleep, it's also good to make sure you're getting enough sleep, going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time every morning, just to take care of yourself. Little things too, eating a balanced diet, make sure we're at home. We now have all of our snack foods accessible to us, that the types of food you're bringing into your home are really helpful, healthy for you, and that you're not just constantly grazing all day. Again, you want to treat your home environment really like you would treat your work environment in that way too. And then lastly, as part of your normal routine, if you exercise, keep exercising. And Wyatt, I have to say, I am not the epitome of the body that exercises all the time, but even I have started picking up more activity in these past couple days since I've been stuck at home. So with my kids going out for walks, we've been playing some different games outside, doing some at-home routines. Things like that can energize our bodies, especially when we're not moving around physically just at work as much, and help our focus, and also make sure we get some sunlight during the day, especially if you're working from your basement as kind of that home office space. So whatever you can do to really keep that normal routine is certainly going to serve you well. The other thing to keep in mind is to make sure that that normal routine allows you some opportunity to distance yourself from work. So at least for me personally, because of what I need to do to make sure my kids are cared for, I'm going to be working some weird hours to share that responsibility with my husband. But again, we need to remember, turn off our devices sometimes, put down the phone, stop checking email, stop responding to things 24/7. If you work Monday through Friday, try and take the weekend to actually be a weekend. Obviously, you've got the time to be more creative if you're transitioning to some remote work, but distancing yourself from work is equally important. And hand in hand with that is also self-care. So that goes back to exercise. Perhaps you're like me. I love a long hot bath at the end of the day. It's time to zone out, relax, think about something totally different from work. What do you need to do to integrate some of that self-care? And maybe it's a new hobby. Maybe it's picking up an old hobby that you haven't had time to do recently as well. And then also just taking time to connect with your loved ones. And so again, that might be through some type of digital means, through Zoom, through FaceTime, making sure you're still reaching out to your colleagues in other ways besides just work. How's life? Are you guys surviving? What's new? What's challenging for you? So that our lives aren't completely consumed with our new ability to work remotely and through our digital means. So make sure you turn things off every once in a while to get some good rest and recuperate from that too. Another thing I'd really challenge us to think about as well is to capitalize on this situation. This is, again, a unique time in our history where I think it's really easy for us to think of the burden of transitioning to online teaching, the burden of trying to do a full-time job while my kids are at home as well. All of it is new and we're having to change things rather quickly, and that's challenging. I would really encourage us to keep a positive mindset in that a lot of times in situations that are crises, so we would consider this a crisis, right? Some of us aren't working at all. Some of our industries have really changed quite dramatically. What can you capitalize on to be innovative, to be creative, to be positive? So employers and supervisors are obviously going to really appreciate staff and team members who can think of creative solutions to issues that we now have with remote work, through the digital platform that we have to provide a lot of our services on. So that's something I encourage my teams to do. We could sit and we could dwell and we could think about how hard this is for us as professionals to make this transition, or we could say, hey, this is a new, unique opportunity. What can I do to contribute to my myself professionally, but also my team, my colleagues, and my employer that might be thinking outside of the box. Now is the time to do it. People are typically more willing to take risks when they're in a crisis situation, right? So maybe you've had a creative idea you're looking to explore with your employer. Now might be the time to start to talk about that a little bit more. So this is an opportunity for us to start to thrive professionally. That might also include more time to pursue additional education or professional development opportunities. Again, now that we're at home and we don't have the same social time that we did before, there's lots of opportunities with that. Lastly, this is just really on a personal note. We've got to maintain a sense of humor. We are dealing with some really serious things in our world. Obviously, people getting very sick, the deaths of individuals we love or people we know. As we are focusing on ourselves and our worlds professionally, where can we integrate a sense of humor to help manage our stress? So again, sometimes that laughter or that freedom comes from like the water cooler conversation that we're not getting to have anymore. So how can you, again, fill yourself with some laughter occasionally to slough off some of that stress that's just too much on our system? So I've seen a lot of great memes floating around social media, sharing those memes. I've got a family text chat right now. We're just floating those memes to and from throughout the entire day. It gives us a little bit of a brain break as we go, and the chance to laugh together through text. Pick up the phone, call a friend, somebody that you know is really positive and can help you see the good in these transitions that we're making. And then I also think just laughing at ourselves. I mean, here we are, a professional webinar situation, and we're already having some technology issues. So that's just the reality of the world that we're in. We're going to encounter some mishaps. Things maybe won't be as perfect as we hope they could be. A good time just to incorporate our sense of humor with this too. So those are kind of my main points, just keeping it really simple, keeping it kind of common knowledge. These aren't things that are rocket science by any stretch of the imagination, but things that we should really be focused on or keeping in mind as we potentially make a transition to remote work, or now we're working remotely with our partner and our spouse and our kids, and life is turned upside down as well. As you're considering opportunities for your professional development while you're from home, just another thing I'd encourage you to check out, Concordia University Wisconsin does have some professional development resources right now. If you go to continuinged.cdu.edu, you can see our list of resources that we currently have available. In the future, you're going to see that Concordia University is also partnering with different organizations that will also allow for some unique professional development opportunities and some creative outlets. I also saw yesterday, I don't know if you've heard of this, Wyatt, Yale's happiness class, one of their psychology classes, is now offered online for free as well. So might be a unique opportunity for us to continue our professional development in a time that is, again, just unprecedented for us as well. What are some of your thoughts about that too, Wyatt? How's it been impacting you, NEWaukee, in your world?
I mean, it's impacting everything, you know, working from home, especially in a field where, you know, we host a lot of in-person gatherings. Having to pivot and see what we can do virtually is really, I mean, it's been a challenge, but also, as you said, you know, you have to keep a positive attitude and see where can you be innovative and how might this situation you know, be an opportunity, trying to look at things from that perspective and really have an opportunity. I mean, from my professional development, I'm getting a deep dive on Zoom. It's interesting. I never really heard of Zoom until, you know, this weekend. So
well, everybody started using it, right?
yeah, yeah. So, from a professional development standpoint, I think we're all trying to find those tools that are going to help, Slack, Zoom, a lot of these online platforms that are helping us to stay connected in this time when we can't be together in person.
Definitely. I know within our institution as well, it's really forcing us to think creatively. So now students are available virtually, not in person, and a lot of our services were done face to face. How do we move that online and provide the same caliber, that same social connection, that really critical touch point to make sure students feel connected and confident in the care that they're being provided by an institution? And in that way, it's forcing us to unlock things like Zoom, using Blackboard more robustly, that we may be able to continue in the future as well. I know one thing we're looking at right now as an institution is our summer orientation. This is kind of pushing us into maybe some different avenues of delivery that we would have eventually gotten to, but we're getting to them much, much faster than we perhaps anticipated as well. So I definitely love the idea of thinking of it as opportunity and taking hold of that as professionals to be the ones that are really creative and innovative too.
Yeah. And I think all of those points that you said are so important. I think maintaining a normal routine, the idea, just because you're working from home doesn't mean that you need to wear pajamas every day,
Yeah.
Actually, there's something to be said about following that routine and getting dressed like you're going to the office. And I know we moved some desks around in our apartment and tried to create those kind of segmented things. If we're working on the couch, then it just bleeds over. And then when you're trying to have couch time, you're like, I can answer that email. I can do some work from here. And so trying to really delineate what is office and where are you going to be in the apartment when you're doing that work versus this is now relaxation time. I'm going to go to the separate area.
Exactly. And I think because so many people are working different hours, I notice I'm getting emails outside of the time that I normally would. And it is really tempting to try and take care of it really quick, but also focusing on, okay, this is time I normally spend with my family. This is meal time. This is time dedicated to my kids. Making sure I really separate work from that, I think is helpful so that we don't get consumed by that. And my emails in general are increasing because now everyone's remote. We're trying not to call everybody on their cell phones throughout the day. So also focusing on what are my priorities for today, for this week, because I think sometimes we can be really tempted to say, okay, I got through all my emails, I'm caught up, I'm done. But in reality, there's still these other projects or things that need to move forward that don't involve just the email communication piece. So kind of having that idea in mind, I found to be helpful as well.
I've seen some companies do stand-ups at the start of the day or roundups at the end of the day. I know NEWaukee, we generally do kind of like a recap email at the end of the day that we just start a thread to see what we've been working on, and it kind of keeps everyone in the loop. Especially in this time when it's hard to communicate to people, you kind of have to over communicate almost.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah. And I see just in the chat area too, Angela asked a great question. Because Angela, I feel the same way. She asks about just the sensationalized headlines. How do we keep that from being too distracting? And then Allie replied and had a great idea. Taking a half hour in the morning and a half hour at night to allow yourself to catch up on the news and what's going on in terms of the coronavirus or kind of recent happenings in your area. Because I've experienced the same. It's really easy to kind of get sucked back into that on a regular basis, but structuring that in part of your daily routine may be a good habit too.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see Larry just commented too about ergonomics. I have a really uncomfortable chair at home right now. I'm dreading how I'm going to manage to sit with that at home. So
I've been trying to take breaks every half hour to an hour and do something active, whether it's just kind of like a little jogging in place or some stretching or something. And to your point about working out, I've been trying to keep up with doing some workouts at night. You know, if you go to YouTube, you can search for body weight exercises and have quite a few of those types of things that are out there as a resource. And yeah, everyone start stretching more.
Yes.
Stretching.
Yes. Move is the idea, right? Staying hydrated. Yeah, and I know YouTube's got videos. I've seen a lot of like different organizations. I think the YMCA was streaming some boot camp videos for free. So some of your local fitness centers might also be offering some services virtually, either paid or for free, just because of the situation right now. So definitely the movement when you don't have the most comfortable chair, the best angle for your monitor as well. I'm going to have lots of books, a tub to prop up my computer so I can stand occasionally too. You make do with what you've got, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Do you have any tips for folks who are trying to work from home with their kids also at home?
You know, probably by the end of the week, I'll have some more helpful tips. What I have personally prepared for is, my husband and I will both be working from home, so I have somebody there to help. We've split the days in half, where I work in the afternoon, he works in the morning. So I've got the morning with the kids, and then he's got the kids in the afternoon. I've set up a space away from where their typical traffic is. And then I've also tried to allocate time where I know I could be interrupted. So like a staff meeting, if I have a kiddo pop on to Zoom while I'm in the middle of a staff meeting, that's not going to be the most detrimental thing. However, I don't want that to happen all the time while I'm trying to teach class. So I've also let my husband know, here are the times where it's like absolutely no interruption, and other times where I just kind of need that privacy to get work done. So removing yourself as far away as you can so you're not in sight of kiddos. And then depending on age, just planning things for them. So at the beginning of the day, we kind of have a list of things that we want to make sure we do with our kids to keep them engaged and entertained so they're not bored. My kids are really young though, 4 and 2, so they're excited when we talk about, here's the challenge of the day or the things we need to get done. If you've got, a preteen or a teen, they might just say, leave me alone, I just want to watch TV all day. And sometimes you might just have to do that, right? It's kind of survival right now. So that's our technique for trying to tackle that. And I can report back at the end of the week to let you know if it actually works or not.
And I think that goes into something too that I've been reading a little bit, but I think we all need to give ourselves a little bit of permission to be lenient with ourselves. This is a really tough situation, and it's great that we're all really trying to find the positives and work through it, but like there are going to be times when you get distracted, and that's
Yes.
Can't beat yourself up about that like too much. Just try to move forward from that.
Definitely. I agree. We've got to extend ourselves some grace and know it's not going to be perfect all the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully it's helpful to everybody who joined. Good luck to you in the coming weeks. And I'm glad we've been able to have this time together as we're making that transition. So thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And to everyone who's been online, thank you for joining us. And we have more events throughout the week. So we hope you just stay connected and keep joining us.
Excellent. Take care, Wyatt.
Bye.
Bye-bye.